Now, I've got quite a bit of icing left in here. I've got to make this stretch. Okay, I've got to find a way to make this do what I need it to do on the final coat. And that should be enough, but we'll find out. One of the first things I do is I'm going to put a little blob on top. I already have a fairly good icing layer here on top, but I'm going to put a little more on just to make sure I've got enough. Just to make sure I've got a reasonably thick icing layer. My icing in general, in between my layers, is about the same thickness. I made it about 3/8 of an inch, just a little less thick than my layers themselves. When it comes to the sides of my cake, the way I'm going to ice it, and this may seem kind of counterintuitive, I take a blob of icing, I actually go over the cake. Now I'm right-handed, but if you're left-handed, you may go this direction. But what I'm doing is I'm going over the cake, I bring my tool here high on the cake, I push down, and then I slide. And the reason I do that is because I can see it better as it comes around. And I can control the icing a little better. Now, I'm not sure why this method is considered to be the standard, but it has become, at least among most cake decorators, the standard way of applying icing. And I always use the straight spatula when I'm doing this. The offset spatula I only use for the top of the cake. And I don't bother using the straight spatula for that. Now, I'm not being terribly neat about it here either. I'm kind of just putting it on. I've got other tools to make it look nice and neat. So my main objective here is to get this covered with a nice, reasonably thick coating of icing. Let's call that. Yeah, and leaving it right as it is, and people might say, okay, good, done. No. Now, we want smooth icing, right? So I'm going to go around here now. I'm going to try to bring it in to the point where it touches the cardboard. The cardboard will be my guide. I'm hoping that the icing, we've got enough icing here to make it thick enough for that. But I'm not going to go any deeper than my cardboard, which means this tool will always be at least 1/4 of an inch away from my actual cake. So it should do a pretty good job. I did a pretty good job. I got a couple holes. You guys can probably see the holes. So I'm going to go around here to my holes and I'm just going to fill them in. Always leave a little bit of icing around just in case you need it for this kind of thing. If you ran out of icing, what do you do? Make more. Yeah, we got plenty of butter, plenty of eggs. Go ahead and make more. It's good practice to make more buttercream. Everybody should know how to make it, have a chance to make it many times.
So this was 2 containers for that one cake?
Yeah, I use 2 containers. You'll also notice that my tool is absolutely vertical. I make sure it doesn't tip inward. If I tip inward, chances are I'm going to go in and start finding, my cake will start poking through. I want to keep it straight up and down. So as I spin here, first of all, I've got to make sure my cake is off center here, I notice. Let me go and center that a little better. That's better. You want your cake to be centered. And as I'm moving, what I do is as the cake is still moving, I pull the tool away. And what that does, it creates an almost imperceptible finish on the cake. You really don't know where, it's hard to tell where I pull the tool away. Now you notice I have a distinct ridge around the top. That ridge is what's going to give me a flat top. So I just got to pick a spot. Any spot will do. Just got to have the courage to do it and make one quick motion across the top to kind of clean off that edge. I go toward me. I personally prefer to go toward myself, but I know people who do it other ways. I've seen people go this direction. They actually will push it away from themselves. I don't know how they do that. I don't find that to be very comfortable. But
to each his own.
To each his own. Yeah. I mean, as long as they get a flat top, flat icing, that's all that matters. Personally, I like going toward myself. So you'll see I'm going to go around here several times in order to get this to the point where I feel satisfied with the flatness of this icing. And by turning the cake, of course, I'm overlapping my strokes. So that's going to make, you know, the marks that I'm making with my tool much less perceptible as I go and do more turns on this. One thing that is pretty noticeable also is that I'm putting very little pressure on this cake. I mean, when I'm going across, I'm literally gliding straight across with very little more than the weight of the tool. If I do any more than that, I'm liable to have, again, that icing might flare out on the sides, and then I have to re-scrape the sides, redo the top. It's just more work. So if I can keep the pressure under control, then I can create what I call flat icing. And that's a pretty good job. Yeah, nice and flat, nice and smooth on the sides. From there, we could serve this just the way it is. But I'm going to portion it first. When you send out cake to the dining room in any restaurant, you're not going to be the person who cuts it, right? You're going to be handing it off to a waiter who will then take it to the table and they'll cut it for the customer. So, do you want the waiter just cutting it anywhere? Do you want to get a specific amount of portions out of this cake? Yeah. Last thing you want is the waiter to come back and say, "We didn't have enough." What do you mean you didn't have enough? You know, you had an 8-inch cake. We only have 4 people. What's going on? So I'm going to pick the center of this cake, and I'm going to take the back of my knife and just create a very gentle line going across the center of that cake. You can probably see it in the screen. It's right there in the center. That divides it in 2. Got 2 portions. That's great. We're going to create 10. So what I'm going to do is pick what I would consider to be 1/5 of each half of the cake and create another line. From there, the rest can be divided into 8 pieces. So straight across, and then divide that in half, and then divide the last part in half. And if you do it right, all 10 portions will be about equivalent, pretty equivalent. 10 is the classic portioning for like an 8-inch or 10-inch cake. 6-inch cakes usually get about 6 portions. That's a little easier to measure. From there, that is what I'm asking you to do, right there. Flat icing. If you do that will be today's assignment, right there. Do you want to stop there? A lot of people don't.
No.
You want to go further.
Make it pretty.
Nothing wrong with that. Because at this point is where you would garnish. And garnishing a cake means, you know, doing any one of a number of things to it to, you know, make it special. Give it something nice. I'm going to do something very simple. Just be a very simple example of creating individual pearls of icing on each portion. This kind of delineates exactly what each portion is. How do we divide these up? And from there, you could make little chocolate medallions, for example, that could go on top of each little pearl. You could also have, let's say, little wafers that go on the top of each one, or anything you want for garnish. But this is just one example of a way of portioning and decorating a cake. The one last thing I might do also is I might try to do something to hide the cardboard at the bottom. And if I'm doing that, let's say I have, I've got an 8-inch, let me see, I've got a bigger piece of cardboard here. If I was going to serve this, let's say I'm serving it in a restaurant, I'd probably serve it on a plate or on a cake stand or something like that. But if you're sending this out, let's say you're putting it in a box and you're giving it to somebody to take home, you're probably not going to put it on a cake stand. You're probably just going to put it in a box and call it that. But I still want to find a way to hide that cardboard. So we could put it on a piece of cardboard and pipe a nice border around the base. That would hide the cardboard really nicely. Another thing we could do is we could get chocolate shavings. Just scrape up some chocolate shavings. And one thing we can do is, all we have to do is lift up the cake. You just lift it up, and you take a pile of chocolate shavings in your hand, and you dab, and dab, and dab, all the way around, so you get a nice rim of chocolate shavings.